Jah opened the bottomless pit, and the great smoke arose out of it. The smoke of the furnace turned the sun into...
Yeah. 3, 2, 1. Boom.
Gone.
Greetings, people. We are currently in the studio of Russ Disciples Rhythm Section. It's a pleasure to be here. I want to shake the man's hand before we go any further. Thank you, Russ. Big fan of your music over the years and stuff. Don't worry, none of this stuff's gonna go anything. All this butt kissing. Right, Russ. How did you choose your name?
Yeah. I didn't choose my name. We was given the name by Chaka. One time he asked us if me and my brother, we was working together at that time when we first started. Chaka asked us if we had a name for ourselves. We said, nah, two white guys from the suburbs, we wasn't thinking anything too dread for ourselves, So he said he'd come up with a name. I remember being in one dance, probably somewhere like, where was it? Peckham, one of the dances down there at the Self-Help Centre. And played one of me dubs, and it's like, yeah, this one by Disciples. It's like, that's what he's named us. So that's from that. That's where we got our name.
Okay. Russ, how did you get into reggae music?
From my brother, really. He was 5 years older than me. During the 60s we had emigrated to Australia. And then when we come back, it was 1970. In 1970 in the UK, young guys was into listening to a lot of reggae music at that time. You had the club reggae, Tighten Up, and all that kind of stuff. That's what younger kids was listening to. My brother was 15, 16, about 15 at that time. So if he'd go, to a party or something like that, they'd hear them things. At the same time, I was into his rock music, Beatles and Jimi Hendrix and so on and so forth. So it wasn't like, the whole thing for him. Then, coming up sort of 5 years later, when we come into the punk thing and stuff, it kind of gelled a bit more, because the punks had that association with reggae as well. Also at the same time, there's a lot of, in the music press, there was a lot written about reggae music. You had The Enemy, you had Sounds, you had Record Mirror, all these different music press and stuff, and they would have lots of stuff in there on reggae music, You had guys writing like Penny Real and Chris Lane and so on and so forth. Guys that knew the music, so you had good articles in there and stuff. So you could see a lot about the music in the music press. It was easy to kind of learn about. And through that time there, we got into the punk thing and stuff in 76. But punk was just a small period of time, for us, 2 years. Once the Sex Pistols broke up, that was it. So for me, it was just like, what's the next music? And I used to hear these bits of reggae. I'd heard some of his records from earlier, but just the kind of usual things like, No Woman, No Cry and Israelites and that kind of stuff there. But you would start to hear certain things. And he had read articles like by guys like Dr. Amontado and Joe Gibbs and so on and so forth. So I can remember, asking him, what's a couple of good albums to get? And he said, yeah, Dr. Amontado's Best Dressed Chicken, Joe Gibbs Chapter 3 in dub. So I remember we used to go out every weekend, down to either Kingston or Richmond, because they had, good record shops and stuff like that. And just saying, just buying them two albums, coming home, and it was like, boy, that was it. Listen to them things there, just like, hooked, So that was from about, 77, 78 at the latest. And just kind of carried on with it from there. A little bit later after that, I think, maybe 79 or something, Rodigan was on the radio. And there was a man with great taste in reggae music, and you know, would be playing you all these tunes. You know, he might play you an updated version of a tune, then play you the original Studio One and stuff, and it's just like you, rah. So you just got into it through that, you know. Yeah.
Okay. Russ, from your understanding, the music that we will love today, when I say we will, I mean us lot in the studio here, and hopefully most of the people that sort of frequent the sort of scene that we're into, where does the music come from, originally?
What, reggae music?
Yeah.
Jamaica. I mean, it has its history going into things, you know, from before that, you know, with the ska and stuff, which was influenced by, you know, American R&B, the original R&B, and even Jamaican folk music, Mento, Pocomania and stuff, which, you know, all emanated from Africa. So its root, you know, is that kind of journey. But reggae music, really, yeah, it's Jamaican music. That's where it comes from. So, you know, we have to appreciate that in what we do here as well, you know, taking it forward from that beginnings time to now. And you see how reggae spread across the world now. And especially, you know, these days you've got a very strong interest in Europe and places. You know, and from our kind of side of the scene, this UK dub thing, you know, it's almost like reggae. Sometimes, you know, Jamaican reggae gets kind of forgotten. And it's like, no, you know, what we do, even if we're doing a dub tune, its influence and its background and history must come from reggae music. It don't need to come from no techno or anything else. It comes from reggae music. So you have to put that, you have to have that knowledge in your head of that music and put that into what you do now as well, you know. Yeah.
Russ, when you were growing up, you kind of addressed this question already, but if you could expand on it a little bit. What artists, when you was from young up to now, influenced you, whether they were soul or reggae, and old-time sound systems? Were there any old-time sound systems that you felt?
No, from the artist point of view, you know, it was obviously the first things that I was listening to, and then people like Pablo, you know, Yabby U, Freedom Sounds, always kind of loved that, you know, that deeper sort of stuff. Studio One, because it was the originator of so many classic rhythms and stuff. You know, the whole of it really. I mean, you couldn't really sort of sit there and say, yeah, it was this one piece of it, because the whole of it makes reggae music, and not even just that everything was all about, you know, heavy steppers and dubs and stuff like that. You know, I liked some other kinds of reggae as well. Studio One really is not the heaviest music as a whole. You know, there's a lot of lovers, you know, like Jamaican lovers and you know, sort of more rubber dub styles in there and stuff. And I like them same way. So, you know, it's like, yeah, all of that, really. It kind of like started to differentiate a little bit by the time it got to like 85, when it all kind of went digital, and the kind of the ragga thing come in. You know, that beat for ragga really didn't remind me so much of reggae. Obviously, the artist that was on top and where it come from was, yeah, reggae, but its beat wasn't for us, for some people, you know what I mean? It went off into, it kind of split it musically. So my thing, you know, I just wanted to stay with what I considered was right for me, you know, which was more traditional reggae music. But sound system wasn't a thing from my beginnings. You know, we you know, lived out in the suburbs. It was only really me and my brother that knew. You know, we were the only people that we knew into it and stuff down here. So we didn't really follow sound system from early times. You know, I know there was a sound. Joe Revelation music come down and played in Surbiton, which was a funny little dance. In Kingston, which is just next to Surbiton, there was a little record shop, just, you know, a shop that sold any kind of records and stuff. But the guy in there used to like reggae, so he had reggae and stuff. And I think he brought in Joe Revelation music to play at Surbiton assembly rooms. So we went down there, and it was quite strange. That must have been 83, something like that. Yeah, maybe earlier. You know, so you had a lot of, you know, suburban white kids all down there, you know, sprawled all over the floor because they smoked their one spliff and couldn't take it and stuff. But it was kind of interesting. But it didn't really capture me in the same way. You know, they was there with a sound system, and that was kind of interesting to look at. But the style of music that I was playing wasn't, because it was more kind of dancehall orientated, not ragga but dancehall. Some tunes are nice tunes, but some of it was just like it didn't really kind of grab me. So, you know, again, it wasn't something I was thinking about. It was kind of hearing about Shaka and stuff like that a little later, which was like, oh, that seemed more interesting. We saw Shaka at Notting Hill Carnival in '84, which I think might have been his first and last appearance there. I don't know. But that was quite, you know, even though we only stood by him for about 15 or 20 minutes, that was something that, you know, it's like, right, you know, that looked interesting, you know. And then later, with you know, being record collectors and stuff, you know, and going around London hunting records and stuff, there was one particular record shop in Camden Town called Flash Forward, and the guys that worked in there were, you know, strong Shaka fans. A couple of them, you know, was like new Shaka and stuff like that, but they were long time kind of Shaka guys. And you know, you go in here and they'd be playing session tapes and stuff like that, and you'd hear them things. It's like, you know, you sit there and hear a tune that you know and have at home, but maybe you haven't played for ages because it just sounds a bit flat on the record and stuff. And it's like, you hear it at Shaka and it's like, rah. That sounds like way more interesting, you know what I mean? So that kind of like triggered a thing off, and at the same time, started making music. And that hearing them sessions was like, you know, it was them in my mind trying to attempt to make my music sound like it did in session, you know. So that all kind of, everything sort of all gelled together there.
I mean, I heard you say on a previous interview that when you visualize, I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but when you hear the music in your head, you kind of relate it to the experience you had when he's in the dance and hearing it coming off enough bass.
Well, this was the thing, you know, when I first started making music, it was just, you know, at home, and you just, even listening to the music was just at home, and it's like, you know, you sit there and you listen to it on your little hi-fi, and you know, you live in at home with your parents and them kind of things, and you can't mash it out, you know. I mean, you don't even, you know, if you don't go to sound system, you don't even think about that. You're just playing it at a nice level and listening to it on a kind of musical level, you know. So some tunes that you know, on record kind of just sound fairly flat and just running through, you know what I mean? Especially a lot of steppers type of tunes, just boom, boom, boom. Maybe not even much of a mix to them and stuff. Don't always have the right kind of, they don't make you get into them so much, you know. Compare it to maybe a classic King Tubby's dub, you know what I mean, where it's all ching, boom, bang, you know what I mean, and stuff. It's like, yeah, some of these, especially, you know, like later 70s and early 80s, very kind of just flat and let it run through. But what we didn't understand was that it's like, well, these tunes are made for sound system, and when you play them on the sound system, suddenly everything comes alive, you know. So hearing that in you know, when we first went to Shaka and hearing that, there was one particular tune which I always kind of mentioned, was Johnny Clark's Bad Days Are Going,
Okay.
or The Other Side.
Jah Love Is With I.
Jah Love Is With I. One of them two there, which I'd had on a Green Sleeves 12-inch and got rid of before that time, because on the record it does sound a bit flat. It's, you know, compared to classic Johnny Clark, circa 76, 77 Bunny Lee King Tubbies, yeah, it's a flat tune. But I remember the first session we went to and he played that tune, it's just like, right, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, that whole weight and stuff, it just like made the tune come alive. I had to go out and try and find the tune back again, which I did, luckily, you know. But there it just made sense, and also hearing that, it made sense to me making the music, where I made my music in the studio and just like, you know, it's like, yeah, it sound nice and pretty and stuff. It's like, it was very hard. I found it very hard to come up with original bass lines, because it's just like, you know, you wasn't really kind of looking at the weight, you was just like looking at the intricacy of the bass line, and that don't always kind of work. But once you start understanding the weight, how the bass line should drop, then it clicked with me, you know. But when I come home after that dance now, it's just like when I put, you know, I was in my little studio. It was before I was in here. It was in my bedroom. Put my headphones up, have the graphic EQ bass full up, loudness button in. You know what I mean? It's like, so it's like sit there with a bass line with a boof, boof, boof rhythm. It's like, It's like, this is how it should sound now. And I could just start to come up with original bass lines and stuff. Everything just kind of gelled together with that.
Russ, can you remember the name of the first record you ever went out there and bought?
It wasn't reggae. First reggae. Well, it would have been...
No, I didn't say first reggae record.
First record.
Period.
That I bought.
That you went out and bought. And don't feel no way, because we've had some embarrassing responses already. Don't feel no way. Okay.
I'll tell you the first record I ever had. And it was Born Free.
Michael Rose.
No. Nothing to do with reggae.
Oh, okay.
Matt Run Road.
Free
As the wind blows. I've got it indoors as well. Yeah, original copy.
First reggae record.
First reggae, yeah, it would have been the Dr. Elementado,
The
Best
album.
Dressed Chicken, and Jogie's African Dub Cheddar Free. Bought them two side by side.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay. Right, Russ. Given the current climate in which sound systems are struggling, I think we all agree on that. You know, in 1978, 79, back in them days, was one thing. 2008, something else. For example, no smoking ban, a lack of venues and noise limitations, etc. What do you see in the future for sound system?
It's very hard. I think if you're in sound system, you know it a bit more because you really know how hard it is. If you're not, you know, it's like for myself, I just go out and I do my shows where I'm kind of asked to go and do them. I wouldn't say it's anything regular. For some people, it is. If you're a sound and you're not getting work with that sound, then obviously it must be very frustrating, and you know the reasons why, because of the lack of venues. Really, I think as well as a lack of promoters. Because you as a sound, that's your concentration, is you know, to work your sound, you know what I mean? Make sure that, not to go out there and book venues and, you know, sort all that kind of thing out. What you need is promoters. I know when I had my sound, I never put on my own dance, never ever. It was always through promoters. And right now there's a lack of them, you know. There's you know, in the whole country, you probably could count them on probably one hand, you know what I mean? But then you've got like X amount of sound systems all vying to try and get work with them small handful of promoters, and the promoters will have the problem of finding decent venues in decent areas that's accessible to people, where sounds can actually play, you know, to a certain level and stuff. You know, there is no restrictions or limited restrictions on, you know, noise levels and stuff. Part of the problem has been the sounds themselves over the years, especially like during the 90s and stuff, from mid-90s maybe onwards, was that some of the sounds were really kind of taking the mickey, you know. Well, just going too loud in venues, you know, without any kind of appreciation for where that venue is, and the problem that, you know, of things like disturbing local residents and stuff like that. You know, it's sometimes you have to play within a limit. You know, otherwise you're killing the venue for yourself, and you see that happen enough times during the 90s. There was enough venues that was closed up because the sounds just went too far. You know, so it's like, where is the sense in that? You know, they should have just like, okay, you know, we don't need to bring in 16 box in this venue no more. We just bring in 8 box, and that's enough. And you can mash up a place with that 8 box. You know, even now some of the sounds are just like, you know, are beyond, you know, the actual need in level that, you know, that to make a dance enjoyable and stuff. You know, you shouldn't have to go to a dance with earplugs and all that. That's just ridiculous. You know, that ain't the history of reggae music. You know, if you talk to people that went to sound systems back in the days, you know, it's like, well, sound systems were pretty loud then, you know, and nobody was complaining. Everybody was kind of happy with that weight line. But compared to now, probably if you had, you know, Coxswain's sound from you know, the 1970s against some of the sounds right now, it's like they would sound weak, because some of these sounds now have just gone to extreme lengths of power. It's just unnecessary, you know. So they need to kind of like calm it down a little bit, and get out of that, you know, this whole technology thing about the sound system, and get into playing good music and entertaining the people. I think half the crowd is not there because that's not what they're getting. Some of the crowd is there because they, you know, they're obsessed with bass line, you know. but half the crowd don't go. I mean, I heard it from things like, people saying they wouldn't go to University of Dub because it's like they're not because of the levels, but because they wasn't hearing the music. None of the sounds are playing any Revive or anything like that, or no Jamaican tunes or whatever. So it's like, well, that eliminates certain section of the crowd. What's the point in that? Because there's good tunes. There's good tunes in Revive that can be played. There's been good tunes from Jamaica that you can play in a dance. If some of the sounds are making maybe more of an effort to take notice of that, we might have a bit more of a healthier scene. So,
Hey, Russ. I mean, I don't like the thing with the earplugs myself. I do think that, something has gone wrong there.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be about being worried about your eardrums being ruptured. It wasn't about that before.
No.
Russ, another question for you. It has been observed that the makeup or the complexion of the crowd which attends Roots sound system dances has changed over the years from predominantly black people to a multicultural crowd. Why do you think this is happening?
Well, white people have always been interested in reggae. I always kind of believe, when I first started going to Shaka, you could count the amount of white people on one hand. I mean, it was predominantly a black thing with a kind of little section of Asians, sort of there and stuff. But at the same time, when I was coming through, it did seem it's like, it wasn't just me as a white person. I mean, my brother's white people that was coming through. You had Alpha and Omega sort of coming through, Manasseh coming through, a few others, you know what I mean? And I think that made it just a bit more easier for white people, especially to start going to dances, where you might think it's like, maybe not a safe thing for white people to go into black areas and black dances and stuff. They don't know how how they might be perceived and all that. All of a sudden, there's like white people making music, there's white guys running sound system. It just makes it more easier. And through maybe someone like a Manasseh who had quite high profile, being both on Kiss FM and his father had some kind of attachment with the media and stuff, so they knew how to get into the media and all that, get it kind of promoted in that kind of way. It made it more open to white people. So all of a sudden, all the white people that were just sitting back at home listening to their tunes, like, we can go out to a dance and do this. Once that's seen, it's like it's okay. Then obviously, sort of 91, 92, when Culture Promotions started doing Shaka at the Rocket, it was 3/4 of the crowd were the university students. Right. So you get in a whole heap of white people and, all sorts of people, just in them dances, because they know they ain't got to travel nowhere. They're living across the road in the student residence and blah, blah. So it's like, okay, you've got 2,000 people in this hall, and there's a big majority of white people. It just become more open, And now, obviously, some years later, you've got the whole of Europe coming into it, and so that opens, it's like it's mostly white people in Europe that are sitting, especially amongst the kind of more like the dub sounds and stuff like that, But black people's thing was more, they loved Jamaican reggae music, what come from Jamaica. That was always more their interest. But black people were, as youths come along, they start to get more into the current music of their youth.
Yes.
So it was, it would have been drum and bass and, the jungle thing and blah, blah, blah. And then R&B and hip-hop and that kind of stuff. So they haven't followed it so much, to this day. They haven't followed it so much. So, you're not seeing so many young black people coming into the dances. But you are seeing a lot of young white people coming into the dances. And, dances are being held all over the place now. Some in, like University of Dub's in a pretty kind of trendy area, London Bridge. So it's just coming off the West End and stuff. So you've got clubbers and all that kind of going there, ravers and all sorts, You might go play up Manchester or Newcastle or Birmingham and somewhere, and it's just, it's clubbers and ravers that you're getting in them places there. So, it opened it all up.
Okay. Russ, how do you feel about internet forums
Mm-hmm.
such as Speaker Plane or Blood and Fire?
Well, I've been on the internet, I think from 96, 97, looking at the forums and stuff. At that time, there was a forum. It was just the record music, reggae forum. They have these different forums that was on the internet, for all sorts of things. But there was a reggae one, and I kind of went on that. But then that started to get controlled. And at the same time, Blood and Fire come on, and they opened up their forum, and a lot of people was on this previous forum moved over to Blood and Fire. And obviously with Blood and Fire being connected with Revive Reggae, and specifically more so Roots, it's just like, yeah, that was like a home for us all, you know what I mean? And it just kind of, it's interesting, you know what I mean? You get a lot. You've had people on there, some very knowledgeable people. You have a lot of people that don't know nothing, and they come on and they're asking questions, and blah blah blah. And it's just like, yeah, you can have a little bit of a fun, a little bit of a talk. You can kind of reason some things out, find out about some things, and all sorts. As time goes by, it gets a little trickier because it's like, people that have been on it for a long time, then start to like, you get asked the same old questions over and over, you know what I mean? It's like, and maybe some, what you might consider dumb questions, So you get a bit kind of, oh, not this again. You know what I mean? You get a bit kind of tired of it. A few people move off and a few people go this way. Some people think it's more like a community and it's like, it's their thing then, and when moderators and all that for the forum can't start coming in and dictating, it's like how things should, maybe some things shouldn't be said and blah blah blah, and it's like taking over our forum, and you know what I mean. So they go off and do something else and go on another and open their own forums up. So you get all these kind of little, ego things going off and stuff. Myself, it's just like, there's people on there, I don't know them, they're not my friends, they're just people you kind of have a bit of a chat with on an internet forum. But at the same time, it can be a place where people can use it for good or bad.
Tell us more about that, Russ.
Well, the good side of it is it's worldwide, so you can reach a lot of people on a worldwide level. Especially if you're in the business and stuff, you can utilize it that way to promote your thing, to get people to know about you, blah blah blah. Which is all good. And obviously, if you're a record label, it's like you can promote your tunes, and that helps with your sales and stuff, which you need to, when you're manufacturing records and stuff. So from that side, it can be good. From the bad side, people can go on there anonymously and just say shit about shit, you know what I mean, and get caught up in some things that maybe they don't really need to get caught up in, and utilize it for not always good, But at the same time, I'm always cautious of how the written word is seen, because how you and me might sit here and talk, you can get expression from how I'm talking. And if I say, so-and-so shit, I might be saying that with some humour in my voice. I'm not really meaning it, I'm trying to have a little joke with you. But you write that down, and it just looks like so-and-so is shit. You know what I mean? So it can come across in a bad way, a negative way, instead of maybe the humorous way that you might be putting, or even the inquisitive way that you might be putting something, So I think a lot of things can get misconstrued on the internet. And then people just like, their brains go skizzy, and it's like all of a sudden it's a big argument about something. And then you'll get people that want to chip in from somewhere that don't know nothing about it, and they will say, "Oh, I think this and that," and blah blah. It's like, well, what do you know about it? I've seen things on there. Guys from over foreign and stuff start talking about sounds from over here, and they've never seen the sound. It's like, well, how can you chip in? What do you know about it other than what you've read by a couple of people on a forum? Shut up, mate. Go away. Keep quiet. But I just get carried away with it. Myself, I don't, what I mean? So you have to kind of, have some, hold yourself back sometimes. Sometimes the less said is the better.
I agree.
So even things like on speaker plans, sometimes some people will be on here asking, why doesn't so-and-so come on here and explain himself, or this or that? It's like, well, maybe it's better he don't, because otherwise it can just go on and on and on, you know. You're in the public light. If you look at someone, you know, superstars and stuff, it's better they stay stum, you know what I mean, than tell you everything about their lives. Because if you tell them about everything, it's like someone's going to pick details out then. Then it's no good, you know. So yeah, you have to be a bit wary of the forums. I mean, I go on them. I don't mind, you know. I mean, I'm not hiding myself. I go under my name. I've got no pseudonym on the forum. I have had on some forums, but usually for different things, just some joke things. Even when I was first on Blood and Fire and stuff, I used to go under some pseudonyms. But we was doing things like, you know, top 10 steppers, and I would go under the name of Super Selector or some other, you know what I mean, some other thing, and then do some little joke thing around it. But anything that was like serious, it would be under my own name, you know, because you've got to represent what you're saying, you know. How can someone who's going under a false name go on a forum and say rah, 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 against someone with no backing? Yeah, you know, you can't take them seriously, you know, just talking shit. So yeah, you have to take it with a little bit of pinch of salt sometimes. What's said on them, and not get kind of like too caught up in it, you know.
How you doing, Ruth? Right, Russ. There has been talk of a Premier League in sound systems. Do you agree? What are your views?
I think, you know, maybe some of the sounds would consider there's a Premier League of sound systems, and I suppose in a way there would be, depending on the amount of work some sounds get over some others. You know, you can easily say that, you know, sounds like Iration Steppers, Abashanti, Shaka and what have you are at the kind of top of the league because they're out working more or less every week doing shows and stuff, you know what I mean? So it's like, well, if you compare that to, say, I don't know, Joe Blogg sound, it's like who's doing a dance once a year. Of course, yeah, your Irations and Abbas are way above. They're next to league. And even new sounds that come in who haven't made, you know, who don't really have everything gelled together yet with their sound. It's all right buying equipment and stuff, but you've got to have the music, you've got to have the way of putting it across. You know, it's not just like put one tune on after another and, you know, put a bit of bass line up. No, there's a skill to how you put music across and entertain people. You know, so there's that league there with a sound skill level. You know, so yeah, I suppose in a way there is a relative league with that. But does it matter? Is another thing, you know what I mean? Because it's only sound system, and the next sound can come along, and maybe they will have the skills, and maybe they will have the music, and just dash away that other sound. And also, you know, I know through playing, you know, all over the world and stuff, Europe and places, you know, there's a lot of local sounds and small sounds that are doing their thing, and they can easily entertain a crowd, same way as any, you know, supposed big league sound man, you know.
Okay. Russ, I think this is going to be the final question, actually. Right? What is the funniest thing you've ever seen happen in a dance?
Funniest thing?
Yeah.
I didn't really see that many funny things. Well, maybe there's one I can't tell. I remember going to a Shaka dance one time. Shaka with Manasseh, and it was a wicked dance. I don't know, it was funny to me anyway. But there was a guy, and he was where Shaka had his stand here and stuff. There was this guy, and he was just like, if the camera can take it, he was just like this. He didn't move, didn't dance. He was just like this, and he must have been like 3/4 of an hour, literally bent over like that. That was his dance. That was maybe more bizarre than funny. But that's how it. I remember another dance. There was a little funny thing happened. Again, nothing kind of major, but there was a dance with Joey J and Manasseh at the Africa Centre in Covent Garden, and we was there. I remember there was this guy who was like sprawled out on the floor for pretty much, you know, 2 hours. I can't remember which one of the sounds put a tune on, but it was Twinkle Brothers, I think Rasta on top. And this guy just leapt up And start, yeah, and he looked around. It was just like, yeah, that one licked me. You know what I mean? It was just like, that was pretty funny. He was just totally out of it. So just little things. I ain't really seen nothing kind of majorly funny.
Russ, is there anybody out there in the big wide world you want to big up before the end of this interview?
No. I just big up the people, you know what I mean? The people are the important thing. They're the ones that keep you going and support you, you know, buy your music and come to the dances and things. You know, just keep checking it and you know, keep an open mind to everything that's out there, you know. Like, don't just, you know, stick with the one thing and think that that's it, you know. There's a lot to reggae music, you know, so just check it all. Take it in, keep the faith. Stay positive.
And on that note, Russ, thank you very much for your time. Shout me in again. Much appreciated. On behalf of my brethren Rooftop, who you lot can't see, we can't see me either. On behalf of Rooftop, who's a cameraman, on behalf of me, Russ, thank you very much for your time. And when this thing's sorted, make sure
you know, I told you on the phone that I'm looking to utilise stuff that I did before. So,
well, we want an exclusive mix for this thing here.
Jah open the bottomless pit.
I've been playing this for a long, long time, you know what I mean?
Who's singing?
A guy called Mikey Roots.
Jah open the bottomless pit.
Oh shit, the old human doing it?
And the great smoke arose out of it. The smoke of the furnace.
I don't know how you want to do this. You're not the best to do it from there. Aye.
Yeah. Smoke too hard.
Okay. Yes, Disciples Studio in the mix.
Yes,
Jah open the bottomless smoke of the furnace turn the sun into darkness. Juff, 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 smoke of the furnace turn the sun into darkness. So long have you looked in the sky.
Thank you.
Hey,
Yes.
Alright, this mix is gonna be every Soundman's wet dream. Yeah.
Jah opened the bottomless pit, and the great smoke arose out of it. The smoke of the furnace turned the sun into.
Yeah.
greetings to Disciple Studio. We're going to do some rough mix now. Disciple style, old school style.
Jah opened the bottomless pit. Yeah. Jah opened the bottomless pit, and the great smoke rose out of it. The smoke of the furnace turned the sun into darkness. Jah fire will be burning, wicked ready to be running, and there's no time to repent, 'cause it will be judgment. The smoke of the judgment burning, turns the sun and the moon into dark.
Alright, greets. Welcome to Disciple Studio. We're going to bust some two mix now, or one mix, but in a two mix style.
Say Jah.
That was rubbish. Alright, greetings and welcome to Disciple Studio. We're going to do some mix right now. Rough style, old school Disciple style.
Go on.
Jah opened the bottomless pit. Yeah. Jah opened the bottomless pit, and the great smoke arose out of it. The smoke. Jah opened the bottomless pit, Say that your fire will be burning. What a great, great day that will be. Cause it will be judgment, yeah. Whoa. Say judgment, that the wicked blood. What a great, great day.
I tried.